to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast with your host, Tracy Hayes. Today, I have the top residential real estate agent according to the Jacksonville Business Journal for 2022. She made the list, they call it. The highly recommended. All of our listeners go to her Instagram, Facebook, and her website to see her reviews. She has some amazing, well thought out, lengthy reviews. That's why she is number one. Today, we will dig into her business and get to know a little bit more about the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services finest. From Fleming Island, Sarah Rothstein to the show.
Hi, thanks, Tracy.
Thank you. I'm glad you made it on today. I am I saw your post this morning on your way over, or I guess when you were leaving the house, you posted something that you were headed this way, and some of your friends were giving you some encouragement.
Yeah, it's a little out of my comfort zone, so I'm excited.
You know, you'd be amazed. I actually had someone else this morning say something. They posted something. And I said, "Hey, look, they're coming on the show in a few weeks," and they said that she was a little nervous, and I said, "Well, actually, amazingly, most are, but you will find hopefully afterwards, and you can tell your friends we're just going to have a great conversation and let everyone know about you. That's the important thing, is to learn about Sarah, what she's doing." Hopefully, as I say oftentimes on the show, my goal personally is that we're going to inspire someone looking to get into real estate, someone who maybe is in real estate and maybe has hit a roadblock or just a lid, I like to call it, from John Maxwell, hit a lid, and maybe there's something that you're doing. They're like, oh, maybe I should put that into my business, and gets them moving along there. So from that standpoint. As often, I start off every show. Where are you from?
I'm from a small town called Springfield, right outside of Savannah, Georgia. So not far away, 2.5 hours. Not
far away. So, again, she does not have a LinkedIn account. I've already given her a hard time about that.
I am on there as of yesterday, just so you know.
As of yesterday. Okay, it must have been after I was on there doing my investigation. So you were born and raised there.
Yeah.
Is that graduated high school?
I lived there for 30 years.
30 years. Oh, okay. So. Okay. So you grew up there, went to high school, went to Georgia Southern.
Yep.
What did you study there?
Mathematics. Surprise.
So the 18 to 22-year-old Sarah, what is she, what was her vision at that time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't have a lot of vision.
Most of us don't at that time.
Yeah. I knew that I was going to go to college, and Georgia Southern was a good school, only about 45 minutes away from where I grew up, so it was kind of in my comfort zone again. And math just kind of came naturally and easy to me. So when I was going to college, I knew I wanted to get a 4-year degree, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just majored in math, what I could do easily. I didn't show up to class a lot. I wasn't the best student, but I got through college in 3.5 years with a bachelor's of science in math.
Yeah.
And had no idea what I wanted to do with that.
I think I see a lot of these people, we see it in our neighborhoods, everyone's worried about where they're sending their kid to school and so forth, and some of them are spending absorbent amount of money just to send them to a name of a school. That's where they wanted to go. That's where their friends wanted to go. I really believe today college is more just this maturity period of time. Versus say, back when our parents, at 18, a lot of them were out. A lot of them, my parents did not get. My mom got her associates, I think, when she was in her late 50s. Just to get a little bump because she was working for the government. She did not have a college education. My father does not have a college education. What my dad did is he went in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And that was his maturity period of time from 18 to 22. So, to say you didn't have direction, I don't know many people did. I started off as an engineer, went to education, graduated with that, and obviously now I'm a mortgage loan officer. So,
yeah, my family, both my parents went to Georgia Southern actually, and all of my friends were going to college. So I knew I wanted to go to college. I just didn't really. I didn't really know what was out there, besides being a teacher or a nurse or, your basic things. I just really never sat down with anyone to have a really in-depth conversation. I had a few college professors I know that were trying to groom me during my math degree, and were trying to give me advice on where we could take that and everything, which a lot of that involved either more school and higher education, or I don't know, just a little bit more, in-depth plan than what where I was at that point.
Right.
But I've always been, I was a pretty good scholar, and like I said, I guess not a great scholar as far as attending class and showing up and things like that. But
You're saying you didn't show up sometimes?
Yeah, I actually missed. There was one particular class. It wasn't for my major, but it was. Of course, you had to take at Southern, and there was only a midterm and a final, and I only went to a few classes in between, and showed up for the final with the date that was on the syllabus, and they actually had canceled, or they had rescheduled it, the teacher, well in advance, and me and one other student were the only ones to show up to that class, so that was the only class I didn't pass because we missed the final on that one. But anyways, yeah. But I got out of, I graduated with my math degree, and then, and then was kind of at a point where I really had no idea what to do with that.
Yeah, so you're roughly 22 years old. Mm-hmm. You're still in the Savannah area.
Yep.
What is, you said you were there till you were 30 before you moved here. So what kind of career options, what kind of things did you do?
Yeah, so it was an interesting road that kind of brought me here. So I, with the math degree, I had a 4-year degree. So I started looking for jobs that just required a bachelor's in anything. And actually, my first job right out of college was at an environmental testing lab in Savannah. And we were literally testing samples of soils and liquids and running them through a machine and trying to pinpoint or detect, different traces of chemicals and things like that. And really, really boring. And I hated it. But I did that for a year. And realized that was definitely not where I wanted to be, and then I ended up again looking for entry-level jobs that needed 4-year degrees, and I came across a pharmaceutical company. So that kind of entered that's kind of where I entered the world of sales at that point.
Excuse my online audience as I adjust Sarah's camera here.
No problem.
But that's why things are edited later.
Okay.
We want to center her more there. I like that.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So what brings you to Fleming Island? And I think it was 2012, if I was reading your bio correctly.
Yeah, so like I said, I lived in the same county I was born and raised at for 30 years. I was just going through some changes and really wanted a change of scenery. And my best friend had moved here a few years prior from Savannah, and so it was Jacksonville's, only a 2.5-hour drive, so it was close to still an easy day trip back to Savannah, and in my comfort zone. I knew you're supposed to step out of that, but that's where I was at the point. And so, anyways, I ended up taking a leap and moving to Orange Park, and that's.
So were you married at this time?
No, I met my husband right around this time.
Okay.
He worked with my best friend also.
So was that part of the influence to come? Was he here?
He was here.
Okay. Okay. Now we're getting some background. Okay.
Yeah. So, I just I just wanted a change, I guess, and then I met him and had a great opportunity to work from home. It was an easy transition from the company I was working at in Savannah to here. Allowed me to work from home. So
okay, so this is 2012. So what kind of work are you doing at this point?
I was working for a pharmaceutical wholesaler. It was inside sales, a lot of cold calling, and I was in this industry. I worked for a couple of different companies, competitors, but I was in the industry for probably about 15 years. Doing this, working with the same clients. We basically would call to hospital and inpatient pharmacies and surgery centers, selling different hard-to-find medications that were on back order. So it's kind of a niche market.
A lot of more or less some cold calling here, talking to people on the phone. I know that in my career, spending first 12 years in the business, being in the call center and talking to people on the phone is that's what you did, right? We did not see I did not see the clients over us. That's why I tell agents all the time, you could be standing in a house right now with a client in front of you, and if you're talking about financing, call me on your phone and hand them your phone. I will talk to them right there and then, because I've done that for so many times. I'm comfortable with it, and obviously enough experience in the business to have a legitimate conversation. Has that to kind of jump forward of, we haven't started talking about real estate yet. Is that natural ability and experience that you've gained there prior to getting into real estate part of some of your strengths?
Yeah, it's interesting. I had no idea when things were changing in the industry that I was in with the pharmaceutical business, and I wasn't super thrilled about the direction that it was going. So that was kind of what made me want to get into real estate. But I had no idea the parallels between prospecting and cold calling and lead generation that with the type of pharmaceutical sales that I was in, that was what we focused on. We weren't given a territory. We were out there, we were literally dialing the phones all day long, trying to develop relationships and rapport with these people,
over the phone,
who, we were basically like glorified telemarketers. So you would have to, get really good at developing rapport and building a relationship very quickly. We got, the phone slammed on us a lot, but there was a lot of parallels when I got into real estate that I wouldn't have necessarily imagined were there with all the cold calling and prospecting and lead generation as there is in real estate.
Right. So you I imagine you probably felt the same way I did after a while, and you said you didn't like the way the business was going. You were probably getting a little burned out.
I was getting burned out. Had been doing it for a long time, but things were changing in that industry that I was in. It was, again, it's kind of a niche market, and we were starting, I didn't really have much to do with insurance and things like that, but we were having to get a little bit more knowledgeable about not just selling our products and filling needs for our customers, but also insurance sides and perspectives of things.
Yes,
and I just wasn't interested in that.
My old mind, there's someone else that I had on the show recently, maybe they're listening right now or I'll listen to the audio, was doing similar that you were talking about, and they really said the same thing. That business started to change in the pharmaceutical atmosphere, and again, the laws change and so forth again. So what gives you your first taste of thinking about becoming a real estate agent?
Well, like I told you, I had a math degree, had no idea what I wanted to do, and needed something that was kind of an entry-level position, which is how I got into the pharmaceutical world, which was great, and I loved that job for years. But it had another opportunity besides pharmaceutical sales, especially before I found the company I ended up staying with for a while. Real estate was kind of another entry-level job, right, that anybody could potentially do. Really didn't... I didn't have...
you just got to take a course for a week and take a test, right?
Yeah. I would stay out of jail, basically. But no, real estate just seemed... it was something that, I don't know how it really got on my radar, but it was something that had been in the back of my mind for a while, for years, actually. And but not something that I was, super active on, going towards. But... I don't know, when things started changing, that was kind of the first thing that kind of popped in my mind. I never even realized, I didn't know any realtors to know, like, what type of living lifestyle and, earning potential and things like that. That never really even crossed my mind, but it was just something that seemed like it would be interesting.
So you didn't have a friend or someone that said, hey, Sarah, you'd make a great real estate agent. You make the decision to go, I assume the first decision is that you're going to go take the course. Mm-hmm. So did you sit down for the whole solid 1 week, or how did you?
Oh, no. So I was still trying to make my career work with the pharmaceutical company. And although it was a very successful career when I was in it, but I was trying to overcome the obstacles with the change environment and everything. And so I decided to go ahead. I was pregnant with my son. My son's almost 7 now. So I was pregnant, and I decided I would go ahead and just do the online course. So I began... probably early in my pregnancy, maybe, and went through a couple of chapters. And then I think I got busy with work or whatever, and I just stalled. And so I think it took me probably about almost a year to finish the class. And then finally I was like, well, what am I doing? You know, I've forgotten all the half of the chapter of the book, you know, or half the book already. So I was like, I got to get serious and just get this done and over with. And it was kind of still in my mind. It wasn't necessarily, I would have liked to have made it a career, and, you know, I hoped it worked out. But at the same time, I still had my other job. I wasn't quitting the pharmaceutical company. I needed a paycheck. And so it was just something to, you know, not necessarily something that was going to be part-time, but it was an avenue to explore, I guess.
Okay. All right. So you're not one of those people who dove in 100%.
Well, I did fairly quickly once I got into it, but at that point in time, it was.
So where you take the test and you pass? Let's get to that point.
Yes.
And this is what, 2000?
2016.
2016. What makes you again? It wasn't on your LinkedIn. Have you been with Berkshire Hathaway the whole time?
I have.
You have. Okay.
Yes.
So what gets you just past the test? What gets you to sign up under Berkshire Hathaway?
Well, I didn't know anyone in real estate. I didn't even know since I worked from home. I didn't have a huge sphere or a huge amount of friends in Fleming Island and Jacksonville.
Well, at this point, you've been here, about 4 years, right?
I've been about 4 years. And I'm a very social person, so I did have friends, but I didn't really know anyone in the real estate world. Right. The only person I knew was Kim Knapp, who you had on recently, and love Kim. She was actually my realtor, and we had bought our house in 2014, so 2 years before I got my license. And I think I went to her either before I started the class completely or maybe while I was in the online course. And first up, I asked her, you know, is this something, you know, am I crazy to try to become a realtor in a town that, you know, I'm not from? I don't really know very many people. Can I be successful here? You know, because in Savannah, where I grew up for 30 years, I know tons of people there. Yeah. You know, that would be easy. Well, potentially. And of course, she you know, flat out was like, yeah, you know, you definitely can make that work. And so she, you know, made me feel good about that I was pursuing a career that had potential. And then once I got my license, I called her again because she was the only person I knew. And I spoke to her about Coldwell Banker, but then also and Coldwell at that time it was really important to me because again I had my other job, right, and that was my primary job, and I wasn't going to let that go. I was still making good money. It was really important to me to find a brokerage that that we were on the same page as where like what I could do. I didn't want to be, and I also had a baby at this time. My son was 6 months old when I got my license, right, when I passed the test, and when I was looking for a job, and I didn't want to be stressed out between two jobs and baby. So, anyways, Kim recommended Coldwell Banker wanted someone that I was told at the time that was full-time. So she recommended a few other companies that I speak to, and Berkshire Hathaway was one of them. I had several interviews with a couple of different brokerages. Linda Benson's my broker at Berkshire Hathaway, and I met with her, and we really hit it off. I felt, you know, everybody wanted to make sure, and she was also, you know, definitely, you know, interested and wanted to make sure that this was a career, you know, a serious move, that I wasn't looking just to, you know, encourage me to
tinker for a little while.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, you know, she understood that I had another job and that, you know, this is what I'm capable of and this is what these are my goals and aspirations. And so that's why I chose to work with Berkshire Hathaway.
So in this conversation with Berkshire Hathaway, and I think your story is going to resonate with a lot of agents out there, or if I want to use, you know, want to be thought about, you know, you took some time. It wasn't like drop dead tomorrow, I'm a real estate agent. You've kind of more or less backed yourself into this career. What was some of the things in that conversation initially with the broker, you know, in with your knowledge today, if someone like yourself came up in front of you and you know, said, hey, what about real estate? What are some of the important things that you asked or maybe didn't ask, you should have asked, but some of the things they were asking, because it sounds like to me, you know, because they wanted to see how committed you were, because they're going to pour a lot of energy and resources into you.
Yes.
And if you don't write, you don't write contracts, they've wasted, or like I said, you're with them for 3 months, they pour all this training into you, then you go, oh, you know what, I got this full-time job, I just don't have any time anymore.
Yeah.
And you're out. So they're digging into you. So what were some of those, let's start with the questions they were asking you to kind of probe to see what your commitments were, if you can recall.
Yeah, I was going to say it was almost 7 years ago, but I definitely remember us having a conversation, again, that I was very forthcoming with letting them know that this was not going to be my primary job at that moment, but they were definitely wanting to make sure that this is something that I wanted to be serious about, to make it a career, to eventually be able to leave the other job and become a full-time realtor, because that is really what it takes in this field to be successful. And they want, like you said, they're investing a lot in me, so they want me to invest in myself and in the career and the job. And to do that, you have to, it's really difficult to be successul in this job if you're just doing it part-time.
Right.
So that was a large part of the conversation. We also talked a lot about training. There was a commitment. A lot of brokerages don't have this, and I think this is definitely something, if you're a newer agent and you're trying to, and you're in the stages of interviewing with other brokerages, you want to make sure that they have good training. And Berkshire Hathaway required us to go through a month-long training program, which was 5 days a week for, I believe, maybe like 3 or 4 hours a day. And they were a little bit flexible if you had to miss classes, but that was a requirement. And to me, it was something that I was able to do. I had my computer up working the other job while I was training a little bit. But it was.
And I'm sure that your baby is the same time.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, it was.
Oh, you were in class.
In a class. It was before COVID. So,
okay.
And now there is a lot more Zoom, and
right.
webinars and stuff. But anyways, so I think that's, though, important. A lot of companies don't require that. And as a newer agent, we all know that you don't learn what you think you're going to learn in the class to get your license. So, it was very invaluable, the education that I learned at Berkshire Hathaway, as far as, all areas of the aspects, from the contract to prospecting to,
All right, so now you're an experienced agent now. All right, so you said something that I've brought up on the show most of the time. Most of your brokerages will tell you they have great training and they have great tech, right? Technology. So how would, looking back, if Berkshire Hathaway just said, you know what, we're not going to do sell houses anymore, we're closing up, and you had to find a new brokerage, and I assume you continue to train today. We haven't got to that question yet, but I'm assuming you're good because you stay educated and stay on top however you do that. But how would a new agent test today? Because all of them are going to tell them they have a great education. What is one thing they should do to kind of have a litmus test that really is the education or that initial training the best they can get?
I think speaking to other experienced agents, when you're going to interview with a broker about their brokerage, ask them, for a few references of agents that you can reach out to and ask them about their experience. See how successful they are. Maybe ask to sit through trainings. Most brokerages are very open to you coming and sitting into a business meeting or a training class. And so, there's a lot of opportunities out there if you just ask to be able to participate in and to educate yourself, to see kind of really what that culture is. Because, and they do, most brokerages, not all of them, but most of them do offer a lot of tools and technology, but those tools and technology are only as good as, they're only good if you use them.
Right.
So part of that too is, the personal growth and the discipline that you're going to have yourself at making your, making that work.
No, 100%. I think we would, what is that? It's 99%. I forget what it. 1% perspiration. Anyway, you are the key component in the whole equation. What you are going to do is the key of all of it. Now, can you make life easier for you if you had, better technology. And, if you're going to the gym right now, it is, to work out, it's you showing up. No one's going to come and pick you up and drag you into the gym, right? What is the equipment there? Is there a trainer there that's going to show you different exercises that you can do so you're not doing the same exercise every day all the time, because eventually you're just going to quit that. That when evaluating that brokerage is like evaluating that gym. You are 75% of it. The other 25 is, do they have the right technology and do they have the right thing? And I was like a lawyer when I asked that question, and I wanted you to say the answer because I want everyone to hear it from you, because you actually are a real estate agent. But it's true in life. You had the one thing about real estate, and I want you to comment on agree or disagree with my statement. I think you're going to agree with it. Is one of the unique things about it is you are your own business. You're 1099. You're signing up under them. So there has to be there's a mutual business agreement. It's not them hiring you. They're not giving you a salary. You need to interview them as much as they interview you. But the bottom line is you need to match up with that right brokerage that's going to, fit with you. And that's why some people move brokerages after a while. They outgrow them or they're not giving you those things. But you said the most important thing is take 5 minutes, go on their website, look up several realtors and just call them. From someone who may just started there 3 months ago to someone who's been there 6 years, 7 years, right?
Right. Finding out about the company's culture also. Another thing I like a lot about Berkshire Hathaway, we have, obviously in the industry, we have the National Association of Realtors conferences. We have the Florida Real Estate Conference in Orlando every year. Berkshire Hathaway has their own conferences and conventions as well, a number of them. And those have been, they provide, so we have local market expertise here, but we also have, a lot of market knowledge and information that we're learning on a global level. So the training and motivational speakers and the things that we get at these conferences, and also the networking that we get. I have a number of agents within Berkshire Hathaway across the country that I'm connected with, that I've met in person, that have relationships with, and that, I can call them in another market and see what they're doing there. I follow them on social media, and they just make a lot of great connections with people within the company that I don't think, I think some of these, that some other brokerages have that as well, but not all do. And I've found that very valuable. I'm
going to adjust your camera here a little bit, but why I asked the question, because I'm not important to you. Well, actually, I don't want to. I want to zoom out just a little bit. Well, I feel like I'm cutting your head off sometimes. Okay, perfect. That's good. This is where I think disconnects good agents and great agents, in my opinion, of what you just said. Going to events, we've often talked about it on the show, showing up as being important. But meeting some of these people who are outside your area, having, not talking to them every day, but maybe you interact, like I said, you're watching what they're doing social media wise, what's going on in their markets, they're giving ideas. I spent the last 2 weeks over the Christmas break, the last 2 shows, if anyone's following me, I actually did them. They were distance shows, which I don't often do. Most of the time I'm here in the studio with the agent, but I took some time to really go in and study what other people are doing. What are other successful agents doing? And that's, you got to have, and that's what RE Bar Camp, Kim Knapp, RE Bar Camp is all about, is exchanging those ideas. This worked for me. This didn't. Don't be afraid to tell people, hey, I tried cold calling. It didn't work for me. It worked. This works for me. Some people can do cold calling and it works for them. Those types of, but trading the little tips and secrets. But how important has that been just in your overall growth and understanding of the industry, but, in just your health of your business?
Yeah. I mean, it's been huge. Like I said, one of the someone that I follow that I've met through working with Berkshire Hathaway and going to conferences is Jimmy Burgess. And I know one of the questions you always ask are, podcasts or books, right?
Right.
I listen to your podcast.
All
And,
right. You're going to the next question. All right, good.
which I do a little bit of both, but I'm more of a podcast person.
Okay.
Jimmy Burgess is fantastic. I follow him. He's got your podcasts are great also too, by the way,
appreciate
from a local level. But he's in another, he's in Florida. He's on the Panhandle. But he's putting out, great information and tips and action items that agents can do. And
what's the name of his show?
So he is the Real Estate Sales Podcast, I believe. Okay. And Jimmy Burgess, Burgees or Burges.
I will look him up.
Yeah. So anyways, he's one person in particular, and that puts out a lot of really helpful information, and it's a lot of action items, and it's not all tools and technology, but there's definitely been times where something new gets mentioned that they're using over there that I don't, I'm not super familiar with, right. And so I'll go check it out, or and I've reached out to him, with advice and questions on, how to take my business, or do certain things that I'm kind of interested in. It just gives an outsider's perspective, and it's, a connection that I wouldn't have had if I had not been, involved with a company that, is putting me in connections with, these types of opportunities.
Well, I think we would all agree. Everyone agrees with me, so I think we'd all agree. We oftentimes will, like if we're going to maybe buy a car or, buy a new dishwasher, whatever it is, we go on and investigate. We get other people's opinion. It could be, hey, does anyone know, a great painter, whatever it is. Our consumer purchases, we often ask for other people's opinion, or, hey, have you guys, hey, you've owned that car. Do you like it? Have you had any problems with it? Right. We ask those questions.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to our business, how many are taking a few minutes? Because we are thrown all these, between real estate agents, loan officers, everyone in the real estate world, we're throwing all these trinkets or flashy, objects are coming in front of us all the time. Like, hey, here's a better CRM. Here's a better way to get leads. Here's this, here's that, and here's the other thing. That to reach to someone who's not in your area and feel you're getting a truly, because they don't see as competition, that right. We should all collaborate. But someone outside the area say, hey, is anyone in your area using this tool? Or is anyone doing this? Are they getting any responses? And they get that kind of feedback.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you can do that from a local level, too. To your point, we all should be playing nice together and helping each other. That's, what I think makes another thing that makes a really, sets an agent apart from others is someone who's willing to, that wants to network and wants to better each other and looking for, win-win opportunities, because we can't sell every house, right. ourselves, right? So anyway, I have... I find my friends and networking with other agents, even in the local market, very valuable, especially Jacksonville is such a large city, and
geographically, we cover such a large area. It's hard for someone in
Ponte Vedra versus Clay County.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have, great agents that I've met within the company that, if I have a listing out in Ponte Vedra or, or I have to have a out-of-state client that wants to do a tour of, Northeast Florida and things like that, and if I need to call somebody, it doesn't have to be someone within Berkshire Hathaway, but, right. It's those relationships are very important.
So the bottom line is having other realtors should be collaborators, should be showing up, whether it's a large event like an RE bar camp we have on January 27th or a social. Try to make some of those convenient socials to meet some of those. I know our family lives take us away a lot of times, so maybe we can do a luncheon versus the happy hour, but to get out and actually shake hands and know who's going to be on the other side of some of those deals. All right, I have a couple questions here. We kind of crossed some of them here. We talked about the brokers things. Let's just jump into you and your business, Sarah. What are a few things you wish you knew before becoming an agent?
Well, I wish I knew the potential and how much of a game changer and life changing that real estate can be if you're successful and if you're all in. You do have to show up and you do have to work really hard. And we joke about this all the time. You know, people get into real estate all the time because they want to make money and they think it's going to be fun and they love to show houses or they like to see houses, but it's a lot of work. And to be able to, you know, if you want it to pay off and if you want it to be what you think you want it to be, you just can't imagine sometimes the hours and the amount of time and commitment that you're going to have to put into it.
Now, I did not prep you for that answer or that question at all. Pretty much, anyway, but I think that was really raw from the standpoint you had no other experience, didn't have a friend, a mom, an aunt, or whatever that was in this business. So you didn't even know the true potential of where you're at today. We'll talk about how it's changed your life. But you obviously had to rely on past experiences, whether it was your education or your work experience, to make it happen. You've gotten into it, and all of a sudden, would you agree? Your business becomes you. You are your business when you're a realtor. There's not a 9-to-5 shutoff. You can control things as you get to a certain level. Like, hey, folks, at 7 o'clock, I'm not going to take a call. You can text message me if you think it's urgent. Otherwise, I'm going to call you back at 8 o'clock. You can start having those control parameters. Most people aren't going to jump on you for that because nothing in real estate really happens like that quickly. The next morning is generally when anything, especially in the loan world, my support staff at 5 o'clock, they go home, right? They're not like you and I. But from that standpoint,
emotional support happens 24 hours a day. I just got to tell you that part, though.
The whole aspect that you become your business, you have to enjoy what you're doing. Would you agree?
100%. And that is definitely one of I really feel very strongly that I don't think I could do this job if I didn't enjoy what I did. And it never feels like, I've had those jobs before sitting at a desk. My whole career basically was behind a desk until real estate. And even though I would enjoyed some of those previous companies and jobs and positions, you still have those times where you're like, oh, I don't want to go to work today. I don't want to do this. You dread it. When's Friday coming around? Well, in real estate, there's never, oh, yay, it's the weekend. It's Friday because the weekend's, just another work day typically. But I never feel, thank God. I mean, that's a blessing for being in real estate, being successful in real estate and being made for this job is that it doesn't feel like work. So I know it's, I don't like to brag about that because so many people don't feel like that. But
well, let's step back. The first few months that you were, in the business, or the first few years, the demand is different. Your first years, you're really trying, if you're really committed, whether you're making the calls, and we'll talk about the different things that you like to do from a marketing standpoint, but you're pounding the doors, and then all of a sudden you reach this tipping point, and then the business and people are calling you. You've done enough transactions that people are referring you, and other people are, oh, she's a real estate agent, Sarah's great, and all of a sudden that type of work becomes the work of actually doing what everyone dreams of being the real estate agent, like showing the houses, writing the contracts. But that's not easy either. It's work. Yeah, and that can stress you out, probably sometimes even more, because now your fear of loss versus at the beginning you didn't have typically a fear of loss because you didn't know what you had, right?
Yeah, no, that's very true. And it's an interesting journey from I used when I first got into real estate, I had a second phone because my other phone was for work, so I needed a new phone for work. And I remember, I always had it on me, and it was kind of a joke because I would just look at it because it would never ring. Like I'd have And now, it's a joke about, oh, look how many messages I got in one day.
Right, right. Or after the podcast, you'll go back on and see how many people have texted you and so forth. What do you think? Give me 3 skills in this, and it doesn't necessarily, these are skills that you've mastered, but that the ideal agent, if we were to create this artificial intelligent agent, what do you think are 3 skills that agent needs to have, ideally?
They need to be good at relationship building, because we're in that business. Work ethic. They need to be, you have to be a hard worker. And I think that's really one of the biggest differentiators of a good agent from a great agent. And be teachable. You need,
Coachable.
Coachable, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So relationship builder, coachable. What was the second one was?
What did I say? You need to have a good work ethic.
Work ethic, of course. Work ethic.
Yeah.
So now let's bring that back around to you now. Okay. Obviously work ethic. We've talked about that a little bit. I think a lot of people who have a misconception of the real estate business, or many of the agents that I've had on the show, will tell you that obviously there's this huge shock. They come in and they're working, and all of a sudden, obviously the fruits come, and they're like, oh my God, look at what I did. Others have this kind of thing, like they don't really have a word. They don't know what it's really like to commit. They don't know what consistency is. We talked about a little bit pre-show when we were talking about social media. You've got to keep banging on the doors. You've got to reach the tipping point.
Yeah.
In the business, most people want to go to the tipping point. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. No one's going to hand you business, but turn those things, the work ethic, relationship building. Turn those things around to your business. What do you do in have evolved? Because I think relationship building is an evolving thing that we do. We may go down this route of doing a lot of this, but then we realize that gets a little burnt out, and then we got to change over, and now we're doing a lot of this. What are some of the things that you like to do to strengthen the relationships and build the relationships that we're talking about, whether it's with clients or with other real estate agents or people in your neighborhood?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with the people in your neighborhood, since you just threw that out.
Okay.
That's one of the areas that I focused on when I first got my license, because like I said, I didn't really know very many people in the area. And one of the things that we talked about in training with Berkshire Hathaway was farming, door knocking, and prospecting. And so, I live in a community that has about 650 homes, and I can't imagine a better place to sell. Where else would you, besides the community that you live in?
Right.
So I'm always surprised sometimes when people don't focus on their communities, because that you have an instant rapport and connection with these people.
Right.
So when I first
commonality.
Yeah. Exactly. So I and door knocking was very similar to cold calling from my previous job. So that's kind of where I began with real estate, besides, letting my friends know that I was a realtor. I started door knocking. I started, just walking my 6-month-old son, and pushing him in the stroller with some flyers. And when I would see someone out in the street, I'd pass out a flyer and tell them, oh, I'm doing an open house, and introduce myself. And that was actually how I got my first listing with some clients that I'm still friends with today. And prospecting, getting involved with my community. I actually joined, we have a recreation committee within our neighborhood where we do food truck Fridays. We have events for kids, for adults. And I'm not as involved. I've been kind of involved with that for several years now. And that was a great way to, it was things that, I found fun. I found fulfillment, being involved with the community, and I got to meet a lot of people. And then, put systems, and it's not rocket science, but, I tried to, when I would meet new people within the neighborhood, try to develop relationships, friend request them on Facebook, just try to stay involved, be a good neighbor and a good friend. And
are you putting those people? I had Marky Lemons-Ryman, who's going to be the keynote speaker, and she gave this great tip in that show. If you have not listened to that show, you need to go back to Marky Lemons. Listen, she talks about just this thing and building her CRM.
Yes,
she does it when whether obviously that neighbor you met, you already know their address.
Absolutely.
You add their name and you're putting that in your CRM, so they're getting your regular
100%
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and I send them notes every once in a while. I do drop-bys, pop-bys at their houses, just try to stay in flow with them. But they definitely go in my CRM, and, and I have it defined, as a group within, Pace Island neighborhood where I live, so that I can, remember who these people are and try to stay in touch. So, so that's...
Let me dig into the farming this. You're 100% right when you made that statement. I don't understand why people don't work their neighborhood. Austin, hope you're listening to the show. I'm giving you here. Austin Preck was on the show. He lives in Beacon Lakes. He does his Beacon Lakes YouTube. Here's the market of Beacon Lakes this month, blah, blah, blah. And he says he goes around the neighborhood. People are seeing the video because our great social media will find everyone that is in Beacon Lakes and feed them that video because they want you to watch and be on their channel. And so you're seeing Austin, and he's saying he's almost like a celebrity walking around the neighborhood. It is so easy to do that. If you need help doing that video, I will help you do that video. It is not very difficult. You just have to pop your phone up. You have your stats. I don't know. You could have a clipboard right there and read the stats off. People don't care. But the fact that you're doing it consistently, and obviously they know you live in the neighborhood, so they can reach out and they see you walking around, or they see you part of the committee creating these events. Work right there. Those 650 homes. I mean, just ballpark in 6 and 7 years now in the business. Yeah. How many transactions have you think you got off in your neighborhood? Ballpark.
No,
I know you don't know an exact number. You gotten 20 transactions?
Oh, yeah. I've probably had at least 20 transactions.
Most real estate agents would love to have 20 transactions in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that wouldn't be probably in a year, but...
Well, no, you did that over time, but if you think about it, like, hey, I've been in here 7 years, and an average agent, which you're well above average, but an average agent, they did 20 deals, they feel pretty good about themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you could take 1 year of the 7 years you just got from your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And the little things of you just getting out, which is good to get out and know who you live around. We're a little shy and bashful, but if you're shy and bashful and being a real estate agent, that's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I joked with you about landing the plane earlier. So you asked me something else. I don't know how we got on this subject, but
landing the plane.
No, about the community involvement before we got on that.
We were talking about what was I? The original question was 3 skills a real estate agent needs.
Oh,
so
okay.
The work ethic, relationship building was really what we took that and took it to another level. Work ethic, I don't know if there's anything you can teach anybody, but I think to kind of summarize that up, you've got to get in, and I would suggest if you're getting in this industry, there's a lot of podcasts, as you mentioned, you listen to. There's a lot of people that will there's a lot of trainings you can go to, time block your day. And if you are really putting a solid 8 hours of true work into it, some people take that 8 hours and they spread it over 12 because they just live their job and they do. But if you actually say, I'm going to work on my social media for an hour this morning, I'm going to make 20 phone calls for the next 2 hours, and that kind of time blocking, you can, create that work ethic.
Right. Before COVID, I don't do this quite as much, but we're trying to get back into the swing of things. I used to go to my office, and I dropped my son off at daycare, and then I'd go straight to the office. And if I didn't have appointments, I would sit there at the office and work because, I was away from distractions, and I was in that groove and that atmosphere where, that I had no choice but to focus on real estate. So, I mean, that's a small example of work ethic, but it's showing up, and being committed and surrounding yourself, in that environment is really important. And I think most agents, even though some do have that environment where you actually have an office and a desk to go sit down to, some don't, but having that is really important, and I think is very helpful with just getting your mindset right.
Well, I mean, would you agree that if a good part of being a real estate agent is being social,
Yeah,
being
absolutely.
showing up. So where you're like, oh, I'm going to this training at lunch. Well, okay, I'm running into other real estate agents. Get something out of that, right? Maybe someone's putting on a training, and I got to meet an agent that lives across town, whatever, and now I know who's there. So you did something for that period of time. Most people, well, I'm going to this lunch and learn, and I'm eating lunch, so it's not really work. Well, no, it is. That's part of how you do things. But if in listening to a lot of whether it's real estate agents or loan officers, because we're kind of doing the same thing, you're doing that prospecting period of time. If you're spending a couple hours a day doing something, and we'll talk about what everyone should do, do the prospecting that works for them. Doing that thing for a couple of hours a day, that's a lot more than the average real estate agent's doing. And if you're committing yourself that, hey, every morning from 9 to 11, I'm going to do X, that over time, that just builds up.
Absolutely. Time blocking is really important, which is kind of what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I was just going to add, too, that, anytime you go anywhere that you're around people, not to make it sound like we're always, trying to bring work into personal relationships, but you're on the clock. Like you're meeting people, you are developing relationships. You should be, anybody that you meet, you should always be putting into your CRM and just being mindful that, this is somebody that you could potentially influence, or, who at some point everyone needs, we all have to have a place to live. So this is always, you're always on the clock.
Real estate's an easy subject to bring up with anybody.
Yeah,
because the first question you ask me, hey, where do you live?
Right.
Yeah. All right. What is your favorite way to prospect, and expand on that a little bit too? Obviously what you're doing today versus what you were doing 6 and 7 years ago, because may have changed. So what is the one thing that you feel is the number one way for you prospecting and really moves the needle for your business today versus what was 6, 7 years ago?
So I'm not doing anything drastically different now. I'm perfecting it, I feel like, compared to before. But I am, digging deeper into relationships. One thing I wasn't doing for the first number of transactions when I first got into real estate, the follow-up after the sale, I really wasn't, it didn't dawn on me that these relationships, especially people that I didn't really, I didn't know. I had just met them, and they weren't like a personal friend of mine or something.
Right.
I didn't really realize the value and the importance of, keeping in touch and trying to deepen that relationship over time. So that's something that I'm definitely doing a better job at now. And that's through things like, just checking in with them, just trying to be personable, checking, to see how things are with their house, keeping them informed on their market value and things like that, that changes over the years. But also on a person, just trying to be their friend. Mm-hmm. So that's something I'm doing different. The other two ways that I feel like where I'm finding most of my business and where my strengths are in prospecting would be open houses and door knocking. Door knocking, I haven't been doing as much recently. I'm a solo agent. So this past year 2022 was an amazing year for me. So I was more working, in my business, or I guess, just trying to keep my head above water with all the transactions and making sure everything's going smoothly. So prospecting, even though I was still doing some of that in a way, but door knocking definitely, I didn't have time to do that. But that is something that I think I do very effectively. And And
So let's dig into the door knocking for a moment, because new agents, they hear it and they probably have never done it. So, to you, are you door knocking in correlation with your open house, or are you just literally just going through?
Yeah.
If you had someone being an apprentice under you,
yeah,
what would you have that agent be doing as far as door knocking? Lay it out for us.
So where I feel like I've been most successful with door knocking is in my community. And I've door knocked in other neighborhoods many times, and I've had some great conversations, and I've had sales that have been produced from those activities. But within my community, we said we have instant connection with these people because I'm knocking on their door, not necessarily just as a real estate agent, but as their neighbor. And I'm being neighborly, and I'm introducing myself. And I'm asking good questions, not from a real estate perspective necessarily, but as a neighbor, and just just asking about themselves, how long they've lived there, if do they like the neighborhood, is this their forever home, things like that. And I found that when you're door knocking in a place that you live, people tend to be much more receptive of you. When I've door knocked in my neighborhood, sometimes I'll be out for a couple of hours and I've only gone to 6 homes because these people keep inviting me in.
Yes.
And they want to show me their house, and they want to talk to me. They're so sweet. They're so nice. Right. And I've met some wonderful people, and I've sold a lot of houses, over real estate's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's not like they necessarily were ready to list their house next month, but they were like, oh yeah, in a couple of years we might want to sell, So I've, and I make sure to, get their contact information. Obviously we have their address, but if there's always, our whole purpose is to try to add value. So if they have any questions, and it's not like necessarily they have in-depth questions every time about the real estate market, but if they, need a painter, or,
new restaurant went in town,
right,
or
exactly,
down the street or whatever.
Yeah. We're just, it's developing a rapport. And so I always, if I have a reason to get their contact information, I do, and then I stay and flow with them. So that's...
So the easy part, I can imagine, if you're working your neighborhood, is because you can walk up and say, hey, I'm Sarah. I live over on
Silver
such
Bell
and
Lane.
such.
Yeah, exactly.
And right away, they're like, oh, she's a neighbor. Okay. All right, I can talk to her. We have the same HOA. We have, the different things that we're dealing with, the same traffic light out front,
right.
That everyone's complaining about. The schools, if they've got kids, you have a commonality immediately to just start talking about whatever. And I think, I'm going to correlate it with the podcast. Like I said in the beginning part of the show, a lot of agents come on, they tell me they're a little nervous, but as soon as we start talking,
right.
Yeah, we're just talking about real estate, which is what you do. And it's the same thing with them. You're talking about your neighborhood, and it's another person. You're going to immediately go back and add them into your CRM, so they're getting your regular stuff. And then, some of the things I think, and you would agree, I think in our area, because it is a growing area, there's, whether it's a new restaurant, a new store, a new shopping center's going in, a new neighborhood's going in, whatever, there's different things that you can find reasons to reach out to them. Hey, let you know, there's a new shopping center going to be going down there, and I think, Publix is going to be opening a new location there, or something, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. The point is you're now staying top of mind, because that's truly the goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Open houses were the other, is the
Right.
other thing that I was doing from the time I started that I'm, continuing to do. And, especially over the past 2 years when the real estate market was insane, open houses are obviously great ways to meet new leads. And just even if the person, before COVID, I think people that would come into open houses were just generally browsing, getting the feel for the market, and maybe it's their hobby, or maybe they are thinking about making a move, but not immediately. In the past 2 years, that was a lot different because houses were selling so fast. People were coming into open houses, buyers that were like ready to do something immediately. So that was, it was even more, advantageous of doing open houses,
Right.
and to.
Well,
to be able to
did you feel there was a period of time there, like almost like you didn't even have to do an open house?
Well, yeah, that was going on too.
Yeah.
But I still, I was strategic about when I would list a property, because we were typically listing houses on a Thursday or Friday and letting it sit until Monday, and then we would collect all the offers, and then we would just, discuss
Right.
highest and best and all this kind of stuff. But during that time period, we'd have open houses to let the masses come in. And so I still, you didn't necessarily have to do one, but I think it was in the seller's best interest to do one.
I think this is one of the things that, and I know you're going to agree with this because deep down we dug in deep into open houses and how you should do one and all that kind of stuff. But even during the time when you really didn't even have to do an open house, you just posted the listing, people were going by, and then you had offers within minutes later, right? The reality is you have to continue doing your show. Part of your show is an open house. As a real estate agent, if you want to do listings, which every agent, I think you guys have a phrase for it, basically.
List the last.
Listings, right? Yeah, whatever. So, if you want to be in the business long term, you want to have so many. I call them traps because that's really what you're doing. You're going out and you're setting a trap. I used to have lobster traps on the back of Cape Cod, so I use this analogy. You go out and you set the trap. And the bait's in there, and the bait's the house, and people are going to come in and slowly, the lobster. There's going to be a bunch of other stuff in there too. Crabs will get in there, and you'll throw those out, but because you want the lobster, right? But that's part of your display. That's part of your show, because now somebody in that neighborhood who's across the street, who you listed the house for last year, and you did this open house and had balloons out there. Maybe you went over, knocked on their door, invite them over, say, hey, I want, come on over and, have a cookie or something or a glass of wine, whatever you were doing. And they go, we're ready to move now. Who was that agent that listed that house across the street? That's why you do the open houses. The first things are in front of you, but really it's the long-term effect that you are a full-service real estate agent. This is what you do, and when you list a house, whether it's a house that's going to sell in 15 minutes or it's going to take 15 weeks, this is the show you're putting on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're doing it it's good for us, but we're also doing it for our sellers. And unless a seller just absolutely doesn't want to do one, I always tell my sellers that it's in our best interest to get as many people in the house as possible. And you want to do the open house right. We don't want to just, put a sign out, the day of the open house and hope that people come in.
Right.
We want to be strategic about it, and we want to be the professional. We want to show, to your point, that we're doing, we're doing this in a way that is, speaks about what level of real estate that we're in, and it impresses people, for sure.
It goes back, to the photography.
Mm-hmm.
Rick was Listing Edge on a couple months ago. I mean, even though this house will likely have enough offers by Monday, and I could probably go around and take a bunch of photos with my phone, and it'll satisfy, but you have to put on the show of putting those professional photos up. You don't know who's going to look, because those things are on the internet forever.
Right.
Someone Googles that house, those photos are going to show up. Yeah. But again, it's those other people who are looking at you who may not be in the business of buying and selling right now, but are just, it's how you present yourself. And
absolutely.
Part of that's the professional photos
100%.
and the open house. How important is it for we're talking about different things, the skills that you're good at and lead generation. How important is it for an agent to find that groove, what they're good at? And I think it's so important. I'm finding more successful brokers talking about it. I try to put it out on every podcast, but you got to match with a broker who's going to help you find that groove, whatever it is that you're good at, that you can 10X.
You do. And you don't know what you don't know. So I think as you're a newer agent and you're trying to figure out, what your strengths are and what's going to work for you, you just have to ask a lot of questions and you have to try a lot of things. I think it's important not to diversify yourself too much. You want to give something a long enough time to be able to work, whatever lead gen or you're doing to see if it's going to be successful for you. But you need to be, I think it's really important. One of the things that one of my goals is to increase lead sources and opportunities besides, just you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket or just a couple of things, especially with the market shifting and things like that. So I think you've got to ask those questions and try to figure out, what works for you,
Right.
and talk to other agents that, are doing different things to see what's out there first off.
Right. Well, I think you all started at the same point. You all came in with you got a license that basically I think is Marky Lemon's side that basically says that you're competent because you know the laws of being a real estate agent. You don't know how to be a real estate agent, but you know the laws of being a real estate agent.
Right.
So the state's okay with giving you a license. Now you actually have to go and put it down and to meet with other agents who are doing different things. And, some of the things you're doing now, a new agent may not necessarily be able to, immediately implement into your game because you've perfected the open house, right? You've done it, but can they do door knocking? Can they go when you're holding an open house, go and knock on doors, with in the neighborhood and let everybody know, hey, tomorrow we're having an open house, and then the day of to circle back around and do that. Those little things that can be done like right out of the gate. And I think it's very important to find the broker or a teammate or a mentor.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit. You were talking about a coach. Have you had I can't remember you probably told me this before when we had coffee. Have you had a coach before?
I haven't.
You haven't. So you've reached a level. Or many have had a coach to get to the level. You've reached a level, but you're also now searching about getting a coach.
Am I doing it backwards?
Well,
but I am. But I want to take my
everyone's
business
journey's
to the
different.
next level, and I feel like I've kind of hit that peak.
Yes.
Over the past few years of, excuse me, of my production and the number of transactions and how much I can handle on my own. So so I am. Yeah, I'm always looking to better myself, and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Well, there comes a point where you need to start investing in yourself, and like I think you reached a lid. Now your lid was different than some people. I've had Angie Bell when she was on. She told me she came from corporate America, had a coach. When first thing she did in real estate, she hired a coach right away. You got in because you got into a business you really. As you told before, you really didn't have any background or anyone to bounce off of, and you've learned it. And amazingly, you've done extremely well. But you've hit a lid now. Yeah. How do I move to the next level? And that's where the coach comes in. But having a mentor or coach, I mean, is there some agents that you would want to kind of give a little call out to you that are kind of you would kind of put on that short mentor list that people you kind of go to when you got some tough deals?
Yeah, absolutely. Within my broker, first off, Linda Benson, she's been fantastic. And our brokers don't compete, so it's always nice to have somebody there who is an unbiased opinion. There's especially when I was a newer agent, but still now, Kat Wetmore is in Fleming Island. She's been a realtor for I'm not going to age her, but for a while. And anyway, so she's
a seasoned agent.
She's a seasoned agent. There's lots of seasoned agents, and I don't mean that. But she's a sweetheart, and she's always been there for me. There's agents, and like I told you, I get calls. I sell all over Northeast Florida, so when I have a new listing or questions about buyers that are going to be out in Ponte Vedra or something, Tina Webster has been a great, resource to me. Priscilla Johnson is with Berkshire Hathaway. She's in our Ponte Vedra office. She's a very top producing agent, and she's really taken a lot of time when I've needed to show me around communities and stuff up there. So Jimmy Burgess, like I said, is someone that I admire, that I listen to a lot for tips and advice, not necessarily on a personal level, but on podcasts and things like that. So you kind of put me on the spot for.
Well, I understand there's probably, and I apologize for anybody's name she did not mention. I'll apologize for her, but I did put her on the spot with that question just to give a call out. But the point I wanted to make was reach out, even if you are a new agent, you're coming out. every agent, you've been in this business 6 or 7 years. Sarah Rocco, 6 or 7 years. You guys are at high levels, in a very short period of time. Reach out. They still remember what it was like the first day they walked into the office, and reach out to these key people that that you could put in your Rolodex and follow them on social media, and start build your business. Surround yourself by those. Collaborate with those people, and they all want to pour into you. They do want to pour into you. They tell me every time they're on the show. You just have to ask. That's really
Word.
All right, here comes. This is there's one for my reels here, or for your reels.
Okay.
Obviously, the production you've done. You've got a lot of at bats and have a lot of feel, especially in the neighborhoods that you're working in. But I think Northeast Florida's whether you're up in Fernandina Beach, down to Flagler County, is in high demand. Well, Florida in general is in high demand, but Northeast Florida. What are your feelings for 23? What are you seeing from the standpoint of lead flow, listings of homes? Obviously, with the rates are higher, but what's your 23 prediction? I hate asking this question, but people love it on social media, so I'm going to ask it.
What's my prediction for 2023 as far as what we're going to see in the market?
Yes.
Oh boy. I think we're gonna have a good year. I still am seeing getting lots of calls from out-of-state buyers who are wanting to move to our area. The National Association of Realtors just put Jacksonville on the top 10 cities across the country as far as projections to overcome the rest of the country as far as growth goes. So we're number 8 on that list. There was Forbes magazine listed Jacksonville on the second, I think, top city in the country recently, or something like that. That was on there. So I think Jacksonville's on the radar, and Northeast Florida. Our prices, even though they're higher than they were, we're still probably one of the most affordable cities in the state right now. So I think we're going to have a good 2023. I think our spring and early summer is going to be very busy. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm getting prepared. I think agents just need to double down and show up and do the work and put themselves out there. And I think we're gonna have a great year.
Tailoring off of that, or I think one of the underestimated. Everyone talks about St. Johns County schools, but there's a rumbling out there. Clay County schools are not that bad.
It's more than a rumbling.
I'm on this side of the river, so
Clay County.
The rumble doesn't quite get to this side.
They were talking about Clay County schools.
Talk about Clay County
St.
schools.
John's
Why
County schools? I feel like
actually, one of the things I asked earlier, I wanted to get more details because lifestyle. You mentioned it in your bio. Coming to Florida, lifestyle and so forth. Expand on someone. Someone came to you to say, when someone's looking at St. Johns County and the prices are a little bit higher here on this side, and the schools are out there, but Clay County has so much opportunity. And tell us about Fleming Island and Clay County as an overall. I mean, someone who might be out of town, we're going to clip this out of the reel, and then we could put up talking about Clay County schools and Fleming Island, etc.
So Clay County is, has been one of the top school districts, I believe, in the state for years. We have A-rated schools. We're, a small suburb outside of Jacksonville. So we're, our commute to work, if you live in Fleming Island or Orange Park or Clay County, is very convenient to Jacksonville. We, we're very close to 295. We've got the First Coast Expressway that's coming through. There's lots of, we've been growing for years, but Clay County, as far as Green Cove Springs and that area, is a great area to look at for investment properties. Also, for your personal home. I think we still have a lot of growth opportunities, and a lot of opportunities for your value to increase purchasing out in Clay County, because it's still affordable. It's rural still right now in some areas, but there's going to be a lot of growth coming. There is a lot of growth coming to the area.
Would you agree? If you're investing right now and you are looking, hey, I have some money I want to invest. I'll buy an investment property. I'm going to rent it out because you are looking at the appreciation value over the next 5 or 10 years. When that expressway connects all the way over, comes over to New Shands Bridge and comes all the way out to 95, that whole area all the way out to Stark, to me, is gold.
It's going to boom. And prices are still very low, especially the farther out you go out there. And people, people do like, the privacy and having, it's just quiet out there. So there's always people that are looking for that anyways, and it's going to be built up more and it's going to get more populated. But it's an excellent, still fairly undiscovered, I feel like, right now at certain areas of Clay County. And the school system's awesome. Again, we're very close to St. Johns County. We have great parks. We have Green Cove Springs has an adorable spring park. At Christmas time, they have a big Christmas celebration where they have Christmas trees.
Green Cove Springs is a hidden gem.
It is. It's super cute. My mom wants to take a river cruise to Green Cove Springs. Which is a whole other story, and I thought it was hilarious that they do that. But it's a really, it's
I will take 2 minutes. I'm going to plug Green Cove Springs. I have some friends that live over there in Magnolia Point, very popular subdivision. From what I understand, Green Cove Springs has had 2 heydays already. Back before the railroad was put in by Flagler, that is where steamboats came down and went to Green Cove Springs. And then second was post-World War II, because the Navy had installations all the way through there, and the yard's still there. The Navy doesn't own it anymore. I assume it's privately owned. But when the sailors were being discharged from the Navy, they considered Green Cove Springs Little Detroit because all the sailors were buying cars and driving home.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yes, that was what you hated. So Green Cove Springs is going to have another heyday, I think, within the next decade and on, because when that expressway goes in and people are going to be able to go, I can live out here, and then it's, hey, it's another 10 more minutes, but it's highway, and I'm at work, assuming you're going into work. Yeah. Now, I do notice, I'm going to kind of wind down here because we're going long, but social media. You're kind of lukewarm. Let's put it that way.
Lukewarm in some areas.
Yeah, but now you've that's not, other people use it more so in their marketing campaign because they're comfortable doing with it or just gotten into it and committed to it. You've been doing well and been busy with the way you've been doing your business. But a new agent coming in today, what would be your recommendation as far as having that social media presence? What are they coaching you at Berkshire Hathaway?
So I think it's really important to I think you're going to be most successful when you do something that you enjoy. So there's so many different types of forms of social media. Obviously, we do think Berkshire Hathaway definitely believes that you should be present in as many, I guess you'd say, as many of those realms as possible. But not everybody loves Instagram. Not everybody loves TikTok. They're all important, and I think if you can, I think you should put yourself on all platforms. But I also personally believe that you're going to be, most genuine and most successful doing something that you enjoy and that comes natural to you. So you say I'm lukewarm. I am probably like red hot, like over the top, annoying on Facebook because I'm on that so much. Now, not necessarily, not just from a business level, but on a personal level. I am on Instagram.
You do have a lot of family photos on the Facebook.
I post.
You definitely do the 5 to 1. You have 5 family to every 1 business. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do. I know I stay on top of mind on people as far as real estate goes from my Facebook post. But, I definitely think Instagram I'm probably not using it to the level that I could, but Instagram's definitely huge as far as, I think as far as referrals and connecting with especially with other agents, I believe, and other companies and in other areas of the country. Followers with Instagram is huge. I don't know. LinkedIn. You already called me out on that.
Yeah, I already called you out on that. Well, because LinkedIn is a different clientele So they say they don't have the algorithms like Facebook and YouTube's goal is to keep you on the channel. I mean that's TikTok, that the more if you're a content creator and you're putting out great videos and people are staying on there, like there's this thing with TikTok that if you can create content that can keep that person on past the first 3 to 5 seconds, they're going to keep pushing your stuff out. So that's their little thing. And I could tell you, notice I've posted a lot of TikTok videos, a lot of the reels of obviously the shows. Now there's no big fancy intro or anything. I'll just have, some sort of relevant subject on there. And then, the agent's making, some sort of, comment relative to that in their business. It'll hit 200 some views, 230 views like that. But the thing is, I looking at the videos that obviously people are, getting tens of thousands of views. Those are the ones that they're doing those little extra things. Like I told you, one of the things I want to advance the podcast to is, getting a couple cameras in that are all recording. Because the one thing they tell you to do in the first 3 to 5 seconds is bounce the camera back. Like it would be you, then me, then back to you type of thing. And all in the 3 to 5 seconds, because flashing that in someone's eyes.
We could just do this.
Yeah. Hey, so I need to advance to that level. But I
try to play off on my...
I was totally going with that. But there comes a...
you said LinkedIn works differently.
LinkedIn does not have that kind of algorithm. You're pretty much getting it out there. Obviously, more people that click it, they like it, or repost your LinkedIn, and it'll push, because I'll see different articles or even a reel that I'll put out on LinkedIn and say something great about the agent. It'll tell me, like, also, over the course of the day how many hits it's getting. It's not getting the tens of thousands like you might see on a YouTube video or something like that. But it is a different clientele. But obviously, if I'm researching you professionally, and I'm a customer up in New York, and I'm like, oh, who's Sarah? Boom, boom. Oh, Sarah went to, obviously must have grown up in Savannah. She went to high school there. She went to Georgia Southern. Boom, all of a sudden I get this feel. And then I think, like this video here we're doing today, people are hearing your story. They can resonate with you. Right. You don't have to go on to college for real estate and became a real estate agent at 22. They're probably actually not even going to do business with you at that. But you're a little more mature and you have a kid and that kind of thing, and they will resonate with you. And then it gives you, I think everyone, what's some of the questions we always ask people, like, where are you from, or we're going, hey, I saw on your LinkedIn you went to Georgia Southern. Boom, now we're talking about where we went to school or whatever, right? So that's why I push LinkedIn. Yeah. I think it's necessary, in my opinion. Which kind of took me off my totally last question. I didn't even write this question down. So this will be my last formal question, since we're going so long here. What is this? You've reached this level. You're getting a coach. Do you see yourself pretty much staying as a single agent with some assistance? Do you really have a passion of recruiting other agents and creating a team? What's your vision? So,
I definitely want to have an assistant. And I have a few different ideas of what direction that might take, but my first step would not be necessarily to hire another agent or to have a team of, realtors who are, doing business underneath me. But I would like to have an assistant to help obviously do things that, give me more time to focus on working on my business than just in my business and running around with my head spinning. Right. And then, I don't know, farther down the road, potentially, we always want to have an exit strategy, right? And I'm nowhere near that, but, being able to enjoy my time with my family and have a better work-life balance, would definitely, I think an assistant would be huge for that. And then also eventually probably having an agent to work with me. I don't necessarily inspire, at least not at this point in time, to have, a group of, I'm not looking for a number of people to be, to have a team necessarily.
If you had someone take all your, have that, really dedicated transaction coordinator person, basically who took away all of your administrative work? And from putting your listings up properly with all the description, you had someone doing all that admin, where
Yes.
you were just totally front end.
That is definitely something that's on my radar right now that I need. So I am, as far as an administrative task, maybe some marketing, help, and behind the scenes type of paperwork and things like that to make my life easier and to be able to focus on clients. Then that's definitely something that I'm working on, and some goals for the future, for the near, close future.
Your twin over there, Shonda Caponero at Berkshire Hathaway.
She's one I should have gave a shout out to earlier, by the way, because she's...
Well, we'll give a shout out to her right now, because when I had her on the show, she had just, in the previous months had gone and brought on a couple of other agents' support, because she was at the point where her business, and she's twice as long in the business as you have, in the growth of Jacksonville and everything. Her business, she said she was like pretty much giving away deals. She didn't have the time for them. She was referring them out. Yes, she was getting a referral fee, but she's like, why would I not, keep this in the house? And I would, obviously you were already talking to her. I know when I was looking at your social media, you were at the Jack's Real Producers. You guys did a picture together. I mean, you and her, like, are I wouldn't say mirror images, but from the standpoint of like where you're at, I think she reached the lid. And so she was just spilling out stuff and realized she was giving away money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've definitely had deals fall through the cracks because I've just, I can only handle so much. And so that's definitely a reason why I want to, I guess I said I don't necessarily want to form a team. I do want to have a team, but I want it to look differently than I think some of your, your typical team that you, when you think of someone that has, a number of agents underneath them.
And you can, I'll tell you, I could give you a list of names of anyone out there. There are so many different teams run so many different ways, even within the same brokerages.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different team structures with, the Keller Williams has a lot of different team structures that I'm very familiar with. They're all run differently. And if you want, I can give you a list of people and you can literally go and talk to 5 or 6 different people in 5 or 6 different ways they structure their team and how it's done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
And it fits them because they're all different personalities, and it's part of that thing. You got to find that thing you enjoy doing, whether it's prospecting or in this case, how you want your team structured. You want it structured the way you like it structured because that makes you, that gets you out of bed every morning, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. These are I call my 2-minute warning questions. So we're going to finish up with these. What is the Rothstein's favorite family thing to do in Northeast Florida?
My favorite thing to do is
do an open house.
That's what my husband would probably say. I love going to the beach or going to the springs. I think we live in a really cool area being in Northeast Florida where we have a lot of outside adventures, kind of things to go do. My husband bought me a paddleboard for Christmas.
Cool.
Not this past Christmas, but the Christmas before. I haven't ever even taken it out and used it because I was too busy, but that's something that I'm inspired to do and that excites me. We also, as a family, we like to go, we're foodies. We like to go out to dinner. We like to explore new, local restaurants and things like that. So that's
cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great, from a social media standpoint, just promote, hey, guys,
Absolutely.
I tried this new restaurant. It was great. Now, if it wasn't great, then maybe you don't do anything, but
Yeah.
All right. Last question. This is one for the reels too. I'm cutting this out of everyone's show here. Is it more important who you know or what you know and why?
So you always ask that question and it's very tricky. I'm one of my goals for this year is to read more books and to grow myself and my personal growth journey. So I feel like that's kind of what you know. However, when I think back about where I've gotten to where I am to this point today, it's been a series of who I know. Through almost, I could tell you, I've worked for 5 or 6 different companies throughout my adult career, and almost every single opportunity that came along with each one of those was someone I knew who, saw potential in me. And as long as you're coachable and teachable, you can always learn more. So the what you know will come. But I think the who you know is I don't know. That's just made a difference
No,
for me.
I totally agree. Totally agree with you. You know, I mean, obviously, everybody has a slightly different opinion on it. I've had people on here say it's what but they were more like in the education side.
Well, you don't know what you don't know, so you can always learn it.
Right.
It's that the right people can teach it to you.
Right. You don't have to go to a class for everything. Sometimes it'll cut corners too for you. It's like, hey, how can I get really good at social media? Well, if you go meet with the right person, they're probably going to pin you down on one type of social media and you become really good at it. Right. They'll learn. But if you go and talk to an expert. Now that expert may be on YouTube and you start listening to a couple of different people on YouTube. Those are you may not know them personally, but you are knowing them because they're spilling information out, going to these events and meeting people and so forth. But Sarah, I appreciate you coming on here. Hopefully our listeners, I know we went long, but we'll cut this up in some short form content for them. We got a lot of good stuff for them. And hopefully someone's researching you. We'll get to know you a little bit more, whether it's a new client or maybe it's someone who wants to be that transaction coordinator for you. If you haven't got someone locked in for that, they're like, oh, I want to be with Sarah. I liked how she presents herself and does business. So who knows?
Yeah, that sounds great. Right. I love fans. Thank you.
Thank you. And make sure you get on her social media and look at her reviews because I went through it because you post a lot of your reviews, and a lot of people have taken time to actually write something significant, which I thought was that I noticed right away. Is like these people aren't just like, oh, she's a great real estate agent. No, they actually wrote some stories in there. People.
Yeah, it's really humbling and makes you really grateful when someone writes a heartfelt review. So I'm very appreciative of that.
Yep, and she definitely does post them up on her social media, which is something everyone should be doing more of so people can see those great comments about you. But thank you for coming on.